Let's go take a look at something. So let's go right over here to this marker, and let's read the marker. These are dry stack stone walls. Dry stack stone walls, a Scots-Irish building tradition adapted by slaves in the early 19th century, were common throughout Middle Tennessee. During the 1864 Battle of Nashville, Brigadier General Henry Jackson was captured at this very wall on the Middle Franklin Turnpike after the Confederate line fell at Chise Hill. All right, so let's take a look at the wall and why this is important. What you're looking at is a dry stack stone wall. What does that mean? It means that there's no mortar in between the stones. That means that the stones were all flattened and shaped to create this structure. And these walls, they're all throughout Tennessee and Kentucky. They're all over the place. Nearly every property line, every property marker has one of these walls, or at least had one of these walls, depending on who the original landowner was, or the land grant went to. But mostly they're used as property lines, as to mark the property line or the property marker. These walls have historical significance as well as cultural significance. Obviously, they were built by slaves or by indentured servants when the land grants were granted. So there's cultural significance in how the land and how the stones were actually created. Because they weren't created, these stones didn't magically, you'll notice that they're all basically square stones. Well, most of those slaves went on to become stonemasons. And that's a whole different ball of wax right there. But there's also the historical significance behind these walls, that they were used during the Civil War, obviously, as you can tell by that marker over there, to essentially defend a position or to attack from a position. Because if you're sitting behind one of these walls, a bullet is not getting through that wall. You can essentially crouch behind that wall and basically protect yourself. That's why these walls are historically significant. All right, a couple of more things about the walls themselves. I want you to notice something. Let's see if you can actually see this right from here. You'll notice that the land next to the wall is essentially slanted. And if you look further in the distance, you'll see a ditch right there. Most of these walls have this same feature right here. Look, right there. The wall is slanted. The whole reason why there's this little tiny divot right there is to prevent a pig or a cow from rooting under the wall, thereby displacing the wall. Well, the wall actually goes directly into the earth. It doesn't sit on top of the land. It actually goes down into the ground. So that little divot actually prevents the wall from collapsing, which is kind of sort of cool. Sometimes these walls are high enough to prevent a horse from jumping over it, but it's really the cows or the pigs from getting beyond their property boundaries. All right. So one more thing about the walls, and it has everything to do with the landowners today. As people move out of the cities, they move out into the countryside, and the land becomes essentially gentrified. As a direct result of that, the new landowners, if they're not keen to having a culturally significant wall on their land, what are they going to do? They're going to remove the wall. And that creates a tiny little problem. These are historically significant walls that need to be preserved. And if the landowner doesn't want it there, they have every right in the world to remove the wall. Well, that creates a tiny little thicket, as you might imagine. So the state of Tennessee as well as the state of Kentucky, because these walls are all throughout Tennessee as well as Kentucky, you'll see them all over the place. The state, both more Tennessee than Kentucky, is essentially trying to create legislation that would protect the sovereignty of the wall and the landowner's rights. And that's a very fine needle to thread. It's almost impossible to essentially, give the landowner their rights, but at the same time protect the sovereignty of these walls like this. And these are incredibly important, significant walls because they were part of the Civil War. They have cultural significance for the African slaves that essentially built them and crafted all of these and became essentially stonemasons. And there's so many possibilities, and they're also, serving as property markers. So as you can tell, these are not just walls. these have lots of significance to them. All right, that pretty much wraps it up. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time and your patience. If you like this stuff and you want to see more of it, please hit the like button. It helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. Not to mention the subscribe button, which subscribes you to the whole channel, and there's a whole lot more content that is sitting here that you pretty much want access to. Not to mention the notifications bell, which is right next to that. Click that, and you'll be notified every single time I upload new content. Which reminds me, this is also user-supported content, which means Mr. Miles is flat, broke, po, which means donations make the car go. So $3, $5, $7, whatever you can afford. Trust me, it'll help me out with putting gas in the tank and food in the stomach so that I can continue to travel around the country telling stories and visiting places just like this so that you can too. All right, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time and your patience, and I look forward to seeing you somewhere along the road.